Welcome back to my series of videos about restoring and customizing a seat for my vintage motorcycle. In this, the second episode of the series, I'll show you how I removed the rust from the original seat pan and then painted it with automotive epoxy primer. I'll put a link to the first episode in the series where I took the seat apart if you haven't caught that already, and don't forget to subscribe to be notified of the next one. As I mentioned earlier, the apple cider vinegar I was using to remove the rust on the pan takes some time to get working, and that was fine by me because I was going on vacation. So I grabbed, oddly enough, a space bag, those vacuum storage bags, and since the seat pan was kind of sharp, I wrapped it in a t-shirt before pouring the whole apple cider vinegar water mixture into the bag. This got me greater surface coverage since this whole box rig I was using was still letting some of the metal peek out above the surface, and I really needed all surfaces of the seat pan to be clean. All told, I think it was in there for about 2 weeks. The apple cider vinegar kind of turns the rust into sludge, after which you can brush it with a wire brush and wipe it away with paper towels. Next up, I headed to the shop because I just could not get these mounting screws for the upholstery strap to come off of the sides of this seat pan. So I ended up using an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel to just cut them off. Next up, it's time to prep it for painting, and so I really tried to get as much of the rust off as I could, and then I cleaned and dried the seat pan. If I had access to one, I would have used a sandblaster to really get into all of the nooks and crannies, but for the investment I'm putting into this, I think that this is going to last a long time, even if I didn't get every single bit of the rust, because the epoxy primer is going to inhibit the rust development quite substantially. So if it lasted 40 years and it looks like this, then I think I can probably get at least another 20 out of it, right? That's my thinking anyway. This next painting process is pretty toxic. I went from a low VOC apple cider vinegar situation to a really high VOC automotive paint situation really quick, but I've changed environments completely. At the garage, I am working in a well-ventilated area with my respirator on, also goggles, gloves, long sleeves, and a bandana to protect my hair. I'll put a link to where I got the epoxy primer in the description, but it's not new. It's kind of an old can that I used to paint my boyfriend's tank last summer, and so it was kind of sludgy and ended up clogging the tube a bit, but I did have a really great experience with it when I used it the first time when the can was fresh. I just followed the instructions on the can, so I mixed it 4 parts to 1 part of the hardener, and then I put it in one of these Prevail sprayer things. You can put the paint and the hardener in the bottom reservoir and then shake it all up and then put on the can of accelerant, and it'll flush it through and spray it onto the seat. I sprayed on 2 coats about 10 or 15 minutes apart, and then I had some clogging problems with my nozzle because my primer's not new, and just touched up some areas with a foam brush. Then I let it dry for 24 hours so it wasn't making any more fumes and the epoxy primer is completely dry. Next up, it was time to reattach the hardware I had removed earlier. That includes the latch for the seat and a couple of other rubber and plastic bits. And this thing is all set for foam. That was a lot for one episode, so I'm saving the foam shaping for its own episode. That'll be next. And after that, I'll sew and attach a new vinyl cover. I also already published a practice project with this vinyl, and it's been performing really well in my home sewing machine, which I'm pretty excited about. So catch that video in Instructable if you haven't already. And please subscribe to catch the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.